When an incident is over, it is tempting to think the story is finished, but for most organizations, the incident report is where the incident becomes real in a different way. Decisions will be questioned, budgets may change, customers may ask what happened, and future teams will depend on what you captured when memories are already fading. For beginners, an incident report can sound like paperwork, but it is better to think of it as the bridge between chaos and learning. A good report does not exist to impress anyone with technical vocabulary, and it does not exist to assign blame in a dramatic way. It exists to record what happened, what it meant, what was done, and what should change next, all in a way that different readers can actually use. The title of this episode emphasizes something important. The report must matter from executive summary to technical detail, which means it must serve different audiences without becoming contradictory or confusing. If you can learn to write an incident report that is clear, evidence-driven, and layered for readers, you will be building one of the most durable skills in incident management. A strong incident report begins with a mindset shift about audience, because you are writing for multiple readers who need different depths of information. Executives want a clear understanding of impact, risk, cost, and decisions, and they need to know whether the organization is safer now than it was before. Technical teams need enough detail to reproduce analysis, validate conclusions, and implement remediation without guessing. Legal, privacy, and compliance partners may need specific facts, timelines, and documentation quality, but they also care about how statements are phrased and supported. Operations and service owners want to understand what broke and how to prevent service disruption next time. If you write only for one audience, the report will either be too shallow to be useful technically or too dense to be useful for leadership. Writing that matters means building layers, where the top layer tells a truthful, high-level story, and deeper layers provide the supporting detail for those who need it. The report is not two different stories. It is one consistent story told at different zoom levels. The executive summary is the place where many reports fail because beginners often treat it as a teaser or a vague statement that avoids specifics. A useful executive summary should be short enough to read quickly, but specific enough to support decision-making. It should clearly state what happened in plain language, what the business impact was, what data or systems were affected at a high level, and what the current status is, such as resolved, contained, or still under monitoring. It should also include the key actions taken and the key outcome, like services restored or access secured, without diving into low-level technical mechanics. Another important element is to include what is known and what is still being assessed, because leaders need to understand uncertainty. The executive summary should not be dramatic, and it should not be full of jargon, because jargon makes leaders either tune out or misinterpret. If you can write a summary that a leader can repeat accurately, you have already made the report more useful than most. After the executive summary, a report that matters needs a clear incident narrative, meaning a factual description of what unfolded, in order, with careful language. The narrative should answer the question of how the situation was detected, how it was confirmed, and how it progressed. Beginners often jump straight to root cause statements because they want the report to feel complete, but a narrative is about observed reality first. A strong narrative includes time anchors, like when the first signal was observed and when major decisions were made, but it avoids filling gaps with guesses. It also separates impact from cause, because impact can be real even if cause is unclear. The narrative is important because it provides context for every decision that follows, and context is what prevents unfair hindsight judgment. When someone asks why a choice was made, the narrative shows what was known at the time, which is the only fair basis for evaluating decisions. To move from narrative to usefulness, you need a section that clearly describes scope and impact, because those two words get mixed up easily. Scope is about what was involved, such as which systems, accounts, business processes, or data categories were affected or potentially affected. Impact is about what happened to the organization and to people, such as downtime, unauthorized access, data exposure, financial cost, and loss of trust. Good reports keep scope and impact separate because scope can be broad while impact is limited, or scope can be narrow while impact is severe. You also want to be careful to distinguish potential impact from confirmed impact, because overclaiming can create panic and underclaiming can create mistrust. This is where evidence language matters. like stating what has been confirmed through logs, forensics, or validated reports. For beginners, the key is to write in a way that makes it hard for a reader to accidentally misinterpret possibility as certainty. Clear scope and impact writing helps leaders allocate resources and helps technical teams prioritize what must be fixed first. A report that matters also needs to capture decisions and rationale, because incidents are not only technical events, they are decision events. Examples of decisions include taking a service offline, forcing credential resets, involving external partners, or delaying certain actions to preserve evidence. If a decision had trade-offs, the report should state what those trade-offs were, without turning it into a debate. The purpose is to document why a path was chosen based on what was known, not to defend choices emotionally. This section is often missing from beginner reports, which focus only on what was done technically, but decision rationale is what leaders look for when they want to improve process. It is also what helps future teams respond faster, because they can reuse the reasoning pattern in a similar situation. When decisions are documented, the organization stops repeating the same debates in every incident. It becomes easier to build a playbook mindset, even if each incident is unique. When you move into technical detail, the most important quality is traceability, meaning a reader can follow how you reached conclusions from evidence. Beginners sometimes write technical sections as a dump of facts, like lists of indicators, log snippets, or tool outputs, but dumps do not explain meaning. A stronger approach is to describe key findings in plain language, then explain what evidence supports each finding. For example, you might state that unauthorized access occurred through a compromised account, and then describe the authentication logs, the timing, and the observed actions that support that conclusion. You might state that persistence was established, and then describe what changes were found and how they were validated. Traceability also includes acknowledging limitations, like missing logs or incomplete visibility, because that honesty prevents false certainty. Technical detail matters because it turns the report into a learning artifact rather than a story. It also allows future teams to validate and build on the work instead of starting over. Another critical part of the technical layer is separating symptoms, causes, and contributing factors, because beginners often collapse them into a single explanation. A symptom might be high network traffic or a service outage, but that symptom could have many causes. A cause might be a specific vulnerability or a compromised credential, but even that cause might not explain why it was possible in the first place. Contributing factors might include weak monitoring, unclear ownership, delayed patching, or overly broad permissions. A report that matters helps readers see these layers so they can fix the right things. If you treat a symptom as a cause, you will likely fix the wrong problem and leave the real weakness in place. If you treat a contributing factor as the cause, you might blame process without addressing the technical gap. Clear writing here is about helping the organization respond to the real structure of the problem, not just the visible surface of the incident. Remediation and prevention are where reports often become either overly generic or unrealistically technical. So this is another place where beginners need a disciplined approach. Remediation should include what was done to stop the incident and restore normal operations, like containment steps, eradication actions, and recovery validations. Prevention should include what should change to reduce the chance of recurrence. But those changes should be specific enough to be actionable and measured without turning into step-by-step configuration. Good prevention writing links recommendations to findings so readers can see why a change matters. It also prioritizes, because not every improvement is equally urgent, and organizations have limited time and resources. Another important piece is ownership, because changes that belong to everyone belong to no one. Even if you do not name individuals, the report should indicate which team or function is responsible for each improvement, so it does not disappear into good intentions. Because this episode emphasizes the full range from executive summary to technical detail, you also need to understand how to keep language consistent across layers. The top of the report should not describe the incident one way while the technical section describes it differently, because that breaks trust. Consistency does not mean repeating the same words everywhere. It means the meaning stays stable. For example, if the summary says there is no evidence of data misuse, the technical section should explain what evidence was examined and what limitations exist, rather than implying certainty without support. If the summary describes a limited impact, the technical section should not quietly mention broader potential exposure without reconciling the difference. Good reports feel like one connected story where each layer expands the previous one. A reader should be able to read only the top and still be accurate, and a reader who goes deep should feel that the depth strengthens the top rather than contradicting it. Incident reports also need to handle time carefully, because timelines are where memory errors and narrative drift show up. A timeline is not only a list of times. It is a map of how understanding changed and how actions followed. Beginners sometimes write timelines that look precise but are actually assumptions, like assigning a start time based on when the alert fired rather than when the activity began. A more careful approach is to label what is confirmed by evidence and what is estimated. Timeline quality matters because it affects root cause analysis, stakeholder trust, and future detection improvements. It also matters because leaders often want to know how long it took to detect, how long it took to contain, and how long it took to recover. If your timeline is sloppy, those measurements become misleading. A good report treats time as a key data element that deserves accuracy, not as a storytelling flourish. Finally, remember that an incident report is both a historical record and a forward-looking tool. It should help someone new to the incident understand what happened without needing to interview everyone who was there. It should help leaders decide what investments to make and what risks remain. It should help technical teams fix weaknesses without guessing. And it should help the organization improve how it communicates and coordinates next time. Writing a report that matters means you respect the reader's time by placing the most important truth at the top, and you respect the organization's future by providing traceable detail underneath. When you learn to connect executive summary clarity with technical evidence, you build a skill that scales across incidents and across roles. The incident itself may be unpredictable, but the quality of your reporting does not have to be. If you can produce a report that is consistent, evidence-driven, and layered for different audiences, you turn a bad day into durable learning and a stronger response posture for the next challenge.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.